Hi, Natalie. Good to see you.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks for doing this again because let me just update you guys. I don't know. We recorded this months ago, but my computer, I was using another Mac and my Mac was getting a little old or something. The battery's not working. And suddenly I'm like, why I don't find that file? Where's that file? And to this day, I cannot find that file. And so I said, can you just please come again? And she generously, kindly came again. Thank you so much. So, Natalie, tell people where are you right now?
I'm in Jersey City, in New Jersey, right across the Hudson River from New York City.
Yay!
And yeah, I'm in our little not townhouse. So I'm in my studio part where I have my computer, and there's a stenciled wall that I
Yeah,
just.
it's a beautiful wall. It's beautiful. I was going to talk about that. So, you know, for people that don't know, I used to live in New Jersey. I love New Jersey. I don't miss the cold though. Um, and so you have a new studio now, like, because you have a pretty good space studio in the other house, right?
It was in the basement, so it was pretty
Ah,
dark.
yeah.
It was beautiful and big, and I liked it a lot.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was in the basement. That was a problem. So it was very dark, and that was tough with painting or filming or
Yeah.
photographing.
Spraying
Um,
things.
exactly, you always need like artificial light. And the other problem was that that was the entranceway. So it was an open space when you came into the house. So not a good space for an art studio where things can get messy. So during the pandemic, that was actually not a problem because we didn't have visitors, right?
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it was a great space, but there's lots of things that are better now, actually. So
Yeah, and I know that it's not easy when I moved here, and this was my probably eighth move and fifth state. So it's especially when you have art things, it's not easy. And I did some cleanup, and even though I had a lot of things, I think most of the boxes that came were my studio boxes. So tell people what kind of art do you do? So tell people what kind of art do you do? You are a mixed media artist, so
yeah, I do paintings, mostly urban inspired paintings of historic buildings with some history. And then I also do some art journaling, and I teach art. So
mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah,
mostly what I do with my art. Yeah,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
do product designs, and then use my products as well in my
yes,
artwork. So it's
yeah,
a mixture of all kinds of
yeah. And
stuff.
we're gonna talk about this because I have some of your stamps with art foamies and stencils as well. You do stencils as well, but what I'm very interested about your art is that this part of you that I think is very unique that you focus on architecture art, which we don't have a tendency to see a lot, especially mixed media art. And what I love as well, though, is that you create with your stamps and your designs a lot of patterns.
Hmm.
And I love that because, I love our journal as well. And I'm big proponent of it. And I love that you use that contrast because you use sometimes your designs of the buildings and then you put the pattern sometimes in the bottom and we can see you use a lot of materials together. Why did you got why did you get so interested about architecture and taking your art that way?
I think that comes from my family and parents. We used a lot. We moved a lot, and I've always been interested in old buildings, but so have my family and my parents. I'm from Germany, as you can hear from my accent, and I was always intrigued in old buildings and actually the stories that are behind it. And then when I was older, we moved to a lot of areas in cities that other people might have deemed as not necessarily livable. The abandoned, crazy areas of a city that then went through gentrification. And I always love digging into this circle of life with buildings, the stories that a building could tell, um, the intriguing little details that usually were used a lot in older buildings, on the facade, but also the stories behind it, the people that came and inhabited that building for a while. And I'm also interested in the change of usages. So I lived, for example, in the Ticonderoga Pencil Number 2 building here in Jersey City. And I've always find it interesting when buildings were used for something different, like old churches or
Yeah.
factories or warehouses, and then they're being neglected and abandoned and fall apart, and then they become a new life. Of course, the whole topic of gentrification is a very loaded one, but I'm like very interested in this whole change. The life and the world changes, and building is a good representation for that.
And I'm showing here the Instagram, and this is an example of your, um, art here. As I was saying, like you have this stenciling and pattern on the back.
Hmm.
And did you already knew how to draw buildings? Because, for example, if I try to draw buildings, like no. So did you do any courses, or it was just because you were just looking at them and sketching and sketching? How that worked?
Yeah, I mean, it's like as with everything, it's just practice, right? Like you do a lot and you do it over and over and over. And I mean, um, of course, those are not perfect drawn or sketched buildings. They're
No,
wonky.
yeah.
I
It's
embrace
your
that.
style, yeah.
That's part of my style and part of what I like. So it's just practice. If I see a building,
Would,
I dig into it and I sketch it a lot, and I look
do
at
you
it from.
take pictures, or sometimes you do insight?
No, I do picture. I do take pictures. I don't like painting outside or drawing outside.
Yeah, me too.
Sometimes I sit outside, but usually the areas or the buildings that I depict are not the ones where you might sit outside that often.
Yeah,
Also, it's cold often here, so or too hot.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I'm not a good like. I don't like. I tried it, but I'm not. I don't. I don't like being outside when I do my art. I like to do it inside and then think about it and
Yeah, and
also
then
do.
we also have access to all our stuff.
Sorry.
And we have access to all our stuff, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the colors that you use, but I love your how do you define your style? Because
Hmm.
I see that it's for sure representational, right? You use a lot of colors, but I love that you put this kind of festive vibe to it on the buildings that you do. Like we can see the movement. I absolutely love this one. I love this contrast with the vintage paper and all these colors. Like you have blocks of colors and values, and you can see some are sprayed, some are painted. So we can see that you carefully build the blocks. No, like you are building the house, but of course in a painting. So what do you think your style is? How do you see your style yourself?
Mm, it's hard to say. I mean, I guess there's an representative.
I know it's hard.
Hey, native speakers, here you go.
Yay.
Element to it. I'm just gonna go over it now. But of course, the colors are more that how I see the buildings after researching them. This one, for example, is a corner bodega, and I just love. the fact that these are always there's always been something like that in this building,
Mm-hmm.
and they are very important to neighborhoods, especially in the
Yes.
city, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like the newspaper where you get your
Yes.
information about the
You know,
neighborhood.
and I don't know. I lived in several states, but not all of them. But I believe these kind of buildings are so New Jersey and New York.
Mhm.
They are so like you see them a lot. So
Right,
it's for example, I've lived in Washington. You don't see buildings like that that has
right,
what the people call the bodegas and corner stores.
right.
Even here in
So
Florida, that has a lot of Latinos. You don't see that a lot.
right. So there's a lot of things going on. Nowadays, they
Mm-hmm.
also take the packages. So there's a lot of reason to go there. And they are oftentimes a little bridgeway between a supermarket or grocery store.
Yes.
So that if you forgot to buy an onion,
Mm-hmm.
or you're like, oh, I don't have an onion, you
Mm-hmm.
might run into the corner store to get your onion real quick, right? So that's
Yeah.
just an example. So I love that there's a lot of life, and a lot of stories behind those
Yes. I love
buildings.
it.
So,
I love it.
and that's
Love,
what
love,
the
love.
colors represent.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah.
I love your art from that kind of you have some things about New York and New Jersey, that kind of transition there. I have one of your prints that has this bird on the bridge there, which I love, is here on my family room. And it just makes me remember of my time there. Do you do commissions?
Actually, one of the paintings that you showed earlier, the little carriage house with the stencil that you pointed out, that was one of my first commissions. I've never done commissions because I find that very complicated. Yeah, that one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that I find that a little complicated, as to what people expect.
Mm.
For that particular building, it is here in Jersey City, and a former student of mine, her niece lives in that building and got married, and or a student of mine, and she knows my style, and she said, I think this would be a wonderful wedding present for my niece and her to be
Mm.
husband. And so I felt very comfortable because I know that she knows
Mm-hmm.
my style, and um,
Yeah,
I
of
might do
course.
more. I find it just interesting with commissions because it's just like, can you do this color so it fits my sofa and blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah. And it's just not really the way how I want to
Yeah,
work,
I love this.
because in a lot of things that I do this with a purpose. For example, when I do art journaling, I often use my own products to show how to use them. But in my paintings, I'm very free. I'm not thinking about, the outcome, or how it will look in the end,
Yes,
or
yes.
how it is perceived. I do
Yeah.
it more for
Sometimes,
myself.
right.
Yeah.
Sometimes
So the
when you have a
commission
commission, yeah.
actually seems to hinders you a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm a little bit hesitant of doing more, but I might do more.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting doing it in connection with researching the building, etc. So it might be a case by case thing. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this one because also this here is so representation of the kind of buildings we have in New York and in
Mhm.
some places in New Jersey. There's ladder building and they are all one beside the other.
Mhm.
Um, and especially in New York and especially in the fancy neighborhoods, you see a lot of interesting buildings like that. When we all watched the Sex in the City, we would see them sitting in
Well, the
this.
interesting thing for me is, for example, that most of the times these used to be fancy areas, and then they were like, out of
Yeah,
style and
they
neglected,
changed.
and then
Yeah,
they were like really bad areas, and now they're coming back to be fancy areas. So
yeah.
that's what I find so interesting, that a huge amount of different stories were lived in these buildings, from people who had servants and had a middle class income, and could afford servants back then, so they were like in a very good standing, and
Mm-hmm.
like a different dynamic. and then some of those buildings were squatted or boarding houses, or or like boarded up for many years, and now people want to come back, or so it's an interesting mix of what a building goes through. So
Yeah.
I believe that we're just adopting a building for a certain kind of time, for a certain term of time,
Yeah.
and and then we pass it on to the next person.
Mm-hmm. And I love again, always these patterns here when you have the patterns, when you are not doing in your uh, ledger journal.
Mhm.
Do you do any classes that teaches this particular architecture?
No, I've thought about it and I have been asked many times, but it is also, again, a part of this is something that I really do for fun and I really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of things that I do that I mean, I enjoy teaching and I enjoy all the other parts too.
Mm-hmm.
But once someone who is a very dear friend of mine and a great artist said, if you're not ready yet to let it go, don't teach it.
Yeah,
So I'm not ready to let this part of my uh,
that's
art.
fair. Yeah.
I'm still like going through phases of how I do it, how I connect certain things,
Yep.
and I'm not ready yet to let it go and teach it. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay too. Not everything that
Yeah,
we as
absolutely.
teaching artists do, we need to teach.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. I love all the details, and I love that it seems like there's people inside because there's lights on the windows.
mhm,
But I love all the texture that you use. You use a lot of splatters, and to me that gives a sense of movement, right? And
mhm,
there's little elements around. I'm doing boot camp too with Julie, and I'm
mhm.
now just thinking about elements of design. And so it's fun to
Yeah,
see.
Julie and I have taught a lot of
Ah,
workshops
yes.
together actually, and we
Yes.
that was one of our big topics in some of the workshops that we taught. So texture is a very important element for me.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's hard to see. I mean, especially in an art journal, you don't have that much texture. It's more like visual texture,
Yes.
not actual texture. But in my
Yeah.
canvases,
There's
I
so
strive
much you can do in
to
the art journal. Yeah.
exactly. So in my paintings on canvas, I strive to use a lot of. I want people to almost like want to touch it when they see it
Yes.
in real
They are
life.
very, very beautiful. Very,
Oh,
very
thank you.
beautiful. And do you think, or do you have any influence from your German, growing up and living there, many years? Oh, I love this chapel here. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's a church that is around the corner and is actually falling
St. John's
apart.
Church. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful,
Wow.
very historic church.
And I love that you use purple because I'm a purple person. No.
Yeah. Isn't
Um,
that the color of the year too? You should be
it
very
is. Yeah, I don't follow that too much.
happy.
Um, but
Sorry, you said something about
yeah,
German.
do you see an influence from your German, background and your culture, um,
Um,
in your art? For example, I think for me as a Brazilian,
mhm,
um, as we are in boot camp and we are thinking a lot, which is really hard, about our art as a statement.
mhm,
I come back to my childhood because I think when you live in Brazil, there's no way you cannot think about colors and vibrant
mhm,
colors. Especially for me that grew up in Rio, was born in Rio de Janeiro. And, people just know Rio about Carnival and all that, but Rio is not just that, but it is a big part, right? And we have such influence by um, black culture because there is a large number of black people there, and a lot of things that are influenced, even food that we eat, a lot of things like that. So we grew up with that strong colors of our black brothers and sisters because I think people don't know, but Brazil has the largest community of black people, you know after Africa. It's not the United States. So it's a very deep connection with color, I think, that we
Mm-hmm.
have, and with music as well, and that influences as well. So I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking, because when I think about German, I never been there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been close. I've been to the border when I went to Switzerland, and I think about this great architecture buildings and this, you know, old Europe style buildings. And I was wondering if, do you think that influenced you, or maybe make you attracted to that?
Definitely. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, given that we have a really horrible history. So there are a lot of cities where I live. There, big parts of the cities are actually very modern because
Mm,
they were bombed in
mm-hmm,
World War II.
mm-hmm,
So if you have like areas that are older, that was it just interested me. But I think there's also a cultural element because I'm actually half Italian, so I
mm,
spent a lot of time as a kid in Italy with family, and there's definitely a different architectural, if you talk about old buildings and old architecture, that also interested me always,
mm-hmm,
And the other thing I think, um, I just I just had this like really nice quote that I saw somewhere, and it spoke to me. Oops, I was looking if I can find it to say it the right way. It was from MC Escher, and he said, "We adore chaos because we love to produce." Order. So I think when I use my patterns are often very geometric or orderly. So I think what I do is I go all wild with colors and texture and how I put things together. But then I use something that kind of like buildings have an order, they have a structure, and so have
mm-hmm,
certain geometric pattern. I love the juxtaposition of those colors and the wild approach in a way, but then I try to find some order in it, in the way of how I depict it.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
um, yeah, that might be cultural. I don't know, but I'm sure I am. I'm really sure. I mean, of
It's
course.
interesting to see you have a part of Italian. So it explains to me how you're so outgoing and, approachable.
Yes, Italian
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah. Well, Italians are very open and approachable. I think even more than Brazilians. Um, but, I know your work. As you said, you did a lot of workshops with Julie. I think I met you, not met you like in person, but met you through the internet because of Julie, because I start following. I don't even remember when I
Mhm,
discovered Julie's blog, and then she talked about you. Then I start following you, from the time, way,
mhm,
when were good times, way beyond years, um, and you always attract me, your colors, because again, I'm so attracted, and I think it's my
mhm.
heritage. I'm so attracted to this not perfect and colorful art. And I'm showing here Natalie's website, which is Natalie with thstudio.com. I'm gonna put all this in the notes. So she has not just her art, original art to sell, but she has also prints. And I would encourage you to take a look. Amazing art there. And I also got a print from her, great quality. So
That's the pencil factory, the green one that you just in the middle there
yes.
talked about. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
um, that was
So
a
amazing.
cool building too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, New Jersey, people don't understand. Like, I
They
remember
think
when,
it's Nelly and The
yeah,
Sopranos.
exactly. When I moved from Oklahoma there, and I was working at the time at the lab in the university because I was doing my degree. I started my degree there in Oklahoma. And I worked in the lab as well. So I told people I'm moving, to New Jersey, blah blah blah. And oh, you're gonna go to that smelly place. And I was like, I didn't know New Jersey, right? So when I got in New Jersey, because I lived in the Princeton area, I'm like, it's so
Nice. Yeah.
beautiful here.
Yeah.
Why people say that? It's so green and like beautiful, beautiful parks. And I'm like, what? You
Yeah, it
know?
used to be that a lot of people, like for example, Julie was
In New
when
York, right?
we
Yeah.
knew each other for a long time, and it was like a 15-minute. It's like by path. That's the subway kind of. You take it into the city, and you're in 15 minutes
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
Manhattan, right? So you
Yeah,
just go
we
underneath
we
the
used to
river.
park there and take the path to New York because it's cheaper.
Right. And so it's very funny because it used to be that New Yorkers would like rather be dead than going to Jersey City. And Julie used to make this joke that she's like, I have to get my shots and like it was a joke. Like, please, I mean, like a good meant joke between friends, right?
But
And
it's,
it's funny
I
because
know,
there's so many people now moving to
it's very
New
common.
Jersey
Like
and
in Brazil, people have this joke of who lives in Rio and who lives in São Paulo because São Paulo doesn't have beaches, a very industrial city, right?
yeah.
And then people make jokes like some people from São Paulo say that Rio people from Rio don't like to work and they're lazy because of the beach. They spend the whole day in the beach, right? And then people from Rio say that they don't know what life is because they don't have beaches and they are polluted and blah blah blah. So
Sounds
there's
very much
always
like this year, Jersey City
yes.
and New York.
Well, and there is also that thing because I say that I was from Central Jersey when I was there. People are like, Central Jersey?
There's
There
no
is no
Central
such a
Jersey.
thing. And I'm like, yes, there is. I am from
Yeah,
Central
if you talk
Jersey.
to anyone who's from New Jersey in that area, they will say that my husband is from there too, and he insists there is a thing like Central Jersey.
We say, I say to this day, I am from Central. I was in Central
Well,
Jersey.
we joke here in Jersey City that it's okay that people think it is like dirty, and we tell people it's full of rats and it
Like New
stinks, so
York.
that exactly that the New Yorkers stay where they are and don't bring the high rents with them. But they
Yes.
have already, so it doesn't really
Yes.
matter.
Everywhere. Everywhere. So I'm showing here your awesome stencils. And
Oh, thank you.
where do you get the inspiration to do them? I just love them. And the reason why I love them, as a person that do abstract art as well, I love that they are not like they don't modify my art, they help
Hmm.
my art, right? Because for example, as a floral artist, I cannot buy a stencil that is a flower
Hmm.
because that's gonna compete with my own design. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I now in search for things that can give me that texture, that effect, but it doesn't take power over my design. I don't want people to look and say, oh, she used that.
Hmm.
It's, we know there are some products out there like this that they become like the person that did them. So I don't like that anymore. I mean, in the beginning, I think it's fine. And if you're just doing this for fun, it's totally fine. We are not condemning that. But for us as artists, we want to have our identity in our pieces,
Hmm.
right? But we want these tools to help us. Of course, it's fun to do your own stamps. I do that. But I prefer a stencil to help me out
Hmm.
and to give me that texture that at the end maybe I even cover, but it's there. It's part of the piece. So I actually have, I don't know if it's this Tokyo stamp, but I have also a foam stamp similar to this Tokyo
Hmm.
stencil, which you have. I'm
Yeah, I
gonna
like to
show
do
later.
stencils, and
Yeah,
oftentimes I use the design for foam stems as well because
yeah,
they're a totally different
yes,
product and totally different used.
I have,
Yeah,
yes.
mostly I draw the inspiration. This is a good example here. So the Tokyo stencil, for example, that's from traveling. So not sometimes it's not literal, like the inspiration is not literal, but
Mm-hmm.
Tokyo is very vibrating and very very busy, especially when you're in Shibuya. You're there. It's this famous intersection where you have like
Mm-hmm.
five crosswalks coming together, and
Mm-hmm.
you sit in a and a cafe on top, and you watch this like hustling and bustling and pulsing. And so some of them are literal inspiration from a city, that there's like elements that I saw like
Mm-hmm.
in the architecture or in a museum, or these kind of things. And then sometimes there are just a feeling, and it's mostly from traveling or from, I call it the stroll through the hood. So elements that I see in architecture,
Oh, I
and
love
that's why
this
they
one.
have like
I think I
the
have this
Hamilton
one.
stencil, for example. That's a very is a stencil that I'm inspired by a park area here, and there's like
Mm-hmm.
fences that have
Yes.
elements that remind
Um,
me.
it's would you call them um, like graphic? Like graphic
Yeah, like
or more?
geometric. Like, I mean, again, it's this like kind of order that's there, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then you can break it up. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to use the stencil in one piece. You can paint
Right.
over it. You can use it as a starting point.
Yeah.
Um,
And you have your stencils with Stencil Girl as well?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
so you have in your store, but you can buy also. I think I bought
right,
this at the Stencil Girl. I have this one.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
I like to use,
oh, I love this
I
one.
mean, I'm very inspired also by different areas of time. Like I like Art
Oh,
Deco. So
this
there's
one
a
is
lot of
very
Art
deco,
Deco.
the Art Deco
Yeah.
Fairview. Love this
Um,
one.
but then I'm also very interested in mid-century. So I have a very eclectic taste in different
Mm-hmm.
design eras, and there's always something that comes up, and then I'm getting almost obsessed. Where I'm like, oh, I really like this, let's say Art Deco, and then I dive into Art Deco in designs.
Mm-hmm.
I look for buildings in Jersey City that are built in that time, apartment buildings. I
Mm-hmm.
look at their
And
little decoration. Yeah,
some of these old houses have some old tiles and things that have some amazing
yeah. Hmm.
patterns. And I love these ones as well, ATC mixed up stencil, because I love them because you can do not just in canvas, but it's great for the art journal, and you can even cut up them if you want, and use them individually. I mean, you can use like this, but you have that.
Yeah, it's a pretty new concept from Stencil Girl, that they asked their designers to use some of their stencil, and then
Mm-hmm.
they're smaller in the element. And at first I was like, I'm not really doing ATCs, but I actually use that stencil a lot because it
Mm-hmm.
has so many different usages, and it's also it's just smaller in the pattern. So you can use the bigger pattern and the small pattern, and that creates another visual interest with juxtaposition and contrast of shape and of size. So that's something that I love to do as well.
Do you use the iPad to sketch this stencils or things like that? Do you ever use the iPad?
It's a mixture. So usually some of the foam stems, most of my rubber stems are actually sketched, and then the very geometric parts are done with the computer
Mm-hmm.
solely. So
Yeah.
a lot of like the hydrant stem, for example, that's a sketch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the foam stem next to it, which is actually not all my design. That's a stamp that I did, the triple play stamp with my friends Birgit Copson and Marsha Fogg.
Yeah. I
So
have that
each of
one.
us
I
do,
love it.
right. These are
Yeah,
differently
these are
done.
the ones I have here.
Mhm.
The funky foam. Yeah, love them. Love them to give that little. I'm becoming in love with foam stamps.
Yeah, there's
I
so
just
much
love
fun
them.
to use,
Yeah,
and
especially for me that work a lot with watercolor, not watercolor. I do work with watercolor as well, but acrylics, and
yeah,
you can use them with oils actually if you use cold wax.
right.
So it's great to give that impression and texture. So I love is easy to clean up. I don't do a good job
Yeah.
at it, but that's okay. Um,
Well, I clean my
I
foam stamp.
know, I know, I'm a
Yes.
bad person.
That's okay. You might not use them for the same, things that I use them for.
You
But
don't have the buildings foam stamp anymore? Or you, oh, there it is. I love this one. Look at this. It's the church.
yeah, I do. But sometimes they're sold out. So
Yeah, they're
it's,
fantastic. This is
yeah, the
great for
church.
our journaling. And the Lady Liberty, look at her. Love
Right.
it.
So these are sketches, but then of course the fan
And
shaped
I love
stencil.
how this Jewett fan positive and negatives, how you have some videos showing how to easy doing like a whole pattern with them. It's just
Yeah, you
amazing.
can use like you have two patterns, but then you can also use the back of it. So you have like
Yes.
three
Yeah.
stems in one, basically.
Yes.
And
Because you can use
that's
the
something that I
solid.
really like is about thinking about how I can kind of like make something that goes on
Mm-hmm.
top of each other and
Yes.
complements each other. That's something where I have a lot of fun, like coming up with something that has a different way of being used. That's Rika. That's she's
Yeah.
amazing. If you
I'm
don't know her,
showing the
you have to.
blog, and your blog has a lot of content. So if you're interested in art journal, which I love, I'm redoing my blog. I moved to WordPress, and I'm having to move all my stuff, the fun stuff you have to do.
No, yeah.
And I'm preparing a bunch of my articles, and I have several articles that I'm gonna have on art journal, and I just love it. And I use art journal not just from my mind,
Mm,
but to me test ideas what I want to do on abstract painting. So if you go to Natalie's blog, she has a blog. If you go to Natalie's website, she has a blog, and it's very active because you have a team, right? That
mhm,
do posts for you and videos and things like that. So it's great because I love when designers do that as well, because it gives us idea how
mm.
to use a particular product. Because I remember when I bought that, I said, "Do you have an idea how can I use this?" Um, so it's great. So if you need inspiration, please go to the blog. Oh, look at this, fantastic,
Yeah, she's so talented. Rika,
fantastic.
she's amazing. I love her.
So again, nataliestudio.com, and you can go and see all the articles that she has. She has YouTube, they do YouTube videos of the process. It's amazing. It's amazing. Um, Look at that. Has all the links and everything. So it's really fun. So if you want a lot of education, and you can get to that as well. Are you not doing the video series with Sarah anymore? The Sarah Matthews. I just did an
We
interview
both
with her.
stopped. We probably will start again at some point. It's not gone. It's just
I know she was busy and she had several things going on for her.
yeah. I was
So,
just moving. I was renovating,
and you
moving
were
to an
you were
old
moving as well. Yeah, a lot
Victorian
of.
house, and we had to renovate. Also, I have to say I was kind of like burned out too, because I
Yeah,
had
you were doing a
so
lot of
many
things.
things
Yeah,
going on.
you were.
So yeah.
Yeah, you were doing
And
some.
I'm taking my time to get back
Yeah,
because, creativity can only feed itself when you do also other stuff that is going
that's
out of
true.
your own, four walls. And we all went through a pandemic, etc. So I'm
Yes.
enjoying doing things that have actually nothing to do with art. They will eventually have something to do with art,
Yeah,
but
you were
see
doing.
people going,
Yeah, you were doing
out,
talks,
going,
right? You were doing talks, and then you were doing the thing with Sarah. So, I mean,
right.
you know, I've learned with my son who has special needs that
Mm,
sometimes it doesn't matter. You have to take a break
right.
because things happen, and he is a priority, and sometimes there's a lot going on. There's always some doctor appointment to go or something to do. And sometimes, even with the podcast, I sometimes have some guests like, when are you going to post? And I'm like, sorry, but it takes a long time for me because sometimes I
Mm,
can spend a whole week and I cannot edit a podcast.
Mhm.
We
Yeah,
have
I think
to,
especially as a caretaker, it's very important to take care of yourself too.
yeah.
Otherwise, you can't do it, right? Like you have
Hmm.
to, uh, in an extreme way, to say like you have to love yourself in order to be able to love someone else. So that means you have to take care of yourself too, in order to be able to take care of other people.
Yeah.
And so I think
But I
it's
think
important.
as a, as a business owners, sometimes we have that pressure, right? Have that
Hmm.
pressure to commit and to do all things and to be all the time there.
Hmm.
So it's tough. It's tough, especially when we are doing like moving. I know I've been through this recently also, so it's difficult. So here I'm still on the website and I'm showing
Hmm.
now. Let's talk about the classes because
Hmm.
your website has a lot of classes. So if you're interested in mixed media, if you wanna learn about, you know, and I think even if you are a beginner, I think Natalie is a good place for you to stop by because she has something called the Creative Jumpstart, which
Hmm.
are several artists together that create a course there. Of course, we are past the time of the launch, but you still can buy that. But she has also other courses, and she has some other courses like little volumes from previous jump starts, right? So you can, very affordable, like 9.99. So you can have a taste of it, and if you like it, then you're like, I can buy now the big course, right? So, but first, before we go and talk about our Jumpstart, talk a little bit about this part of your website, this education part of your website that you like to offer there.
Yeah, I've been doing online workshops for a long, long, long time.
Yeah.
And I do love, even before the pandemic, I do love teaching in person too, but I do love the accessibility of online workshops, that people have to, when you have an in-person workshop, you have the problem of people getting there, having to pay for traveling, having to pay for staying
Yeah.
there maybe.
Especially nowadays.
There's
Yeah.
time restrictions, problems how to have all the supplies there, etc., etc. So I always loved the thought of doing online workshops. I mean, I've doing Creative Jumpstart for 11 years, and have done other workshops before online, probably 13, 14 years ago. So I really love doing it, and so I really love that you can dive into certain topics like this one.
Mm-hmm.
Artful Adventures with Gustav Klimt is an art
Mm-hmm.
journal workshop. I have a lot of those artful adventures where we dive into a certain artist, and then it's given through my lens, of course, and I take like techniques, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
and then we dive into that. And I used to do this as a in-person workshop too, but we would do several artists in two
Mm.
days, and
Okay.
this gives me an online workshop gives me the ability to dive even deeper into one artist and then have different ideas and expose people. I mean, Gustav Klimt is of course someone who a lot of people know, right? But I have done artists that might be not as prolific or known.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that gives me an opportunity to just dive deeper into them. I learn a lot when I do that, and yeah, I hope other people do too. And I love to do collaborative workshops. This one, Beyond the Paper, is exactly what it means. Everything but paper in an art
Mm-hmm.
journal. I did this with my friends Birgit
I
Cobson
have to
and
say, this is on my
Art
wish
of Law.
list. This is on my
Sorry?
wish. I have to say, this
Oh.
is on my wish list.
It's a fabulous, I mean, if I dare to say so,
It
more for
looks
the sake of
fabulous
the two
because
other ones, it's so much fun because we really had a blast putting this together and brainstorming and getting inspired by each other in what kinds of different materials to use,
mm-hmm.
from plaster to cardboard to, uh, plastic folders, fabric,
Oh my
you
gosh.
name it,
Yeah.
papyrus.
And if you are not seeing the video, but I want to say that when you go to her online workshops, all of them have a little video introduction, which I'm not going to play here because of the sound, but you have a little introduction there. So you can see a sneak peek of the classroom there. So people know when you visit. But this class looked amazing to me because I love this concept of
Yeah, exactly.
exploring
I think
things.
that for me, and you said that before too about art journaling. Art journaling is not so much about the journaling part for me. It is about warming up before I paint on
Exploration, yeah.
canvas, but also to explore new ideas or
Mm-hmm.
techniques or dive a little deeper into things. And so this was a great workshop because it actually also forced Birgit, Marsha, and me to kind of like dive deeper into this concept
Mm-hmm.
of getting away from paper and how to make that pliable, that you use different materials and substrates and create an art journal.
So here in the class, this is what got me interested and very curious when maybe I need more time for this class, but it's like graphics Duralar. You know, I have this thing with Duralar. I actually have some Duralar because I'm very curious. I remember have someone saying to me, look, if you want to be an artist, you have to choose. Or do you paint flowers or you do this. You cannot do everything. And I'm like, I can't. I like a lot of things. I like to explore materials. I like, and I think they all gonna end up on my art, right? So I bought this Duralar and I had no idea what to do with it. I just bought it, but you guys use Duralar and use a fabric, use faux leather. Tyvek is also something that I used long time ago. And
Yeah, I think the part that I feel is so important, especially when you like mixed media art and to explore different materials, is
mm-hmm,
um, a thinking about substitutes for what is used, right? So let's say you don't have graphics Durala, you can see if you find something that's similar to it. You could
mm-hmm,
use protection sheets, or we talk about that in the class as well. Or if you don't have papyrus, you can see what else you want to explore and then
mm-hmm,
use a similar technique. So it's not just about using that particular, we don't want you to buy
all of that,
exactly
yeah.
that material.
But
And the other thing
it's
that I
fun
think
to
is
know
so
the
important about
possibilities,
those
right?
classes, let me just like say that before, sorry,
Mm-hmm,
is that it's so important to also through a workshop realize what you like and what you don't like, but you can only learn that if you try things that you haven't
so
used
true.
before. So you might be like for me personal, for example, I love exploring the plastic in my artwork, but I actually don't really want to use it.
Mm-hmm,
Like it's fun to play with it, but there are a lot of areas where I just don't want to purchase plastic for example, for environmental reasons.
mm-hmm,
I don't want to do that, right? But I had a lot of fun doing that. I don't judge other people that do that or want to do that. Just don't get me wrong. But
mm-hmm.
I think I really learned that by doing these things. And I'm like, yeah, that's really cool, but it's not me. And I think that's what's so important about taking workshops is that you learn how it can bring you further. And also, if you learn that you don't like a specific technique or material, that's gold. Like for me, that's
Yeah.
gold to know that. And then I'm like, okay, been that, done that. I can put that in my folder of I tried it, I branched out, and now I know I don't have to do this anymore. Someone else can use this, give away your materials or tools, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a very important part of taking workshops as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about exploration. I
Mm.
mean, you can only find yourself as an artist or what you want to use if you explore the materials and know what you want to do. Like, I love fabric. Love
Hmm.
fabric. I am a frustrated person because I never learned how to sew properly because I would love to learn how to sew, you know.
I hear you.
And I had a sewing machine I sewed before moving, so we had to give or sell a lot of things because we were paying the moving ourselves. But I did some bags. I loved to do bags.
Hmm.
But I always had this frustration that I would like to learn how to do clothing and things like that. But in this moment in my life, I don't have time to that. And I also
Mm.
get frustrated that you don't see local classes for that anymore, right?
Mm.
And, but I think and then I thought, oh, I'm going to use fabric on my art, like on my canvas. And I tried once. Well, let me tell you, it's in my garage waiting for me to just tear it up because I hate it. So I hated how it looked. It looks awesome with other people using it, but when I try myself, I didn't feel it. I hate it. So, you have to explore. So when we have other classes, but I want to talk about Creative Jumpstart because that's what the name is. So if you are wanna again explore and get help with your, maybe just start it even with our journal, mixed media, and you have um, several artists and you have a theme. This year is creating connections.
Mhm. It's a great, I think it's a great workshop. 38 downloadable video lessons. There
Yes,
were also bonus lessons by some of the teachers, some really wonderful, wonderful teachers. I call it like a Tupper's bar. It's a Tupper's bar, a smorgasbord of, different
a little
styles
bit
and
of, yeah,
ideas.
a little bit of
And you
everything.
get a taste of it, and then you can also decide maybe to go to one of the other teachers and take a class with them later. And you can take it in real life, which a lot of people did. We had like, I think, 1,300 students in January taking it in real life, but you can also take it, at your own pace. It will go away, so it won't be, for sale that much longer, just a couple months, and then in November you can't download the videos anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
if you buy it now, you could still download all the videos, share your work. We're still looking at the teachers, and people are still looking at the gallery and what you upload. You can share your work, so it's. I think it's. I mean, of course, I'm biased, so.
Mm-hmm. No, I
But I
think
think the
it's a
teachers did a great job. Yeah.
yeah, it's a great concept, and you also, like it says here, there is a series of 38 techniques,
Hmm.
and it's awesome because I think it's not overwhelming, and if you are new to this and just want to get something just to take your mind out of it, and they are short lessons, right? Because it's what the name says. It's just to give you that jump start. You get the materials, you get to know the material, and do something fun. And at the end, you probably have a book of all these techniques for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that the important thing to notice is that the videos are about 8 to 12 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that you necessarily will be able, if you would take that same approach to make
Mm-hmm.
the artwork, you won't be able, in most cases, to do that in 8 or 10 or 12 minutes. It will
Mm-hmm.
take you, in some cases, even like a couple more days. But
Mm-hmm.
the reason why I like, or why I always wanted people to do it in a short form, which is a little challenging for some teachers, is because I want the students to do. Like, I don't want
Yeah.
them to watch a video for 3 hours. I want them to see something, to get sparked by this, what's being shown, and it can be
Mm-hmm.
that you want to replicate the very same thing, or you just take a little bit of that video and you go and you take it with your own materials and your own approach. So I want your time not to be wasted through Creative Jumpstart by watching the video. I want you to actually go into the studio and
Mm-hmm.
create. And I think that's often a problem that I often have myself too. It's like easier to do the research and watch videos and take the class,
Mm-hmm.
but not taking the class.
Yeah.
It's a workshop, so the work is in the pudding. You have to do it, right, in
Yes.
order to make something. So I think that's what my main goal is with all my videos. They're
Mm-hmm.
very condensed, and I know some people like it when it's longer. So if you like a very step by step and longer video, that's not wrong, but then that might be not for you. It's like
Mm-hmm.
really condensed, very short, to get you hopefully to be like,
Yeah,
I want to try this,
yeah,
right?
techniques and get you going. Um,
Right.
and why, when you have this theme, like create connections, right? Is the theme this
Mhm.
year. So, what does that mean for the teachers when you have that theme? Like,
When
do
I have a
they,
theme or the that theme in
yeah, when you
particular.
say to them the theme this year is going to
Mm.
be creating connections, what do they have to do for that theme?
They are very. I usually leave it very open for the teachers
Mm-hmm.
because as we talked earlier about commissions, and I said that I don't like to be hindered in what I do or how I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to hinder my artist, and I think it is fun to have a theme to kind of like get your creative juices going.
Mm-hmm.
So in this instance, I say, here's what I feel. This is the theme of the time for me, especially after the pandemic. We're here and try to start creating new connections, maybe old connections. And it is interesting to me to see how the artists are interpreting the theme. So some take it very literally. So they think about, okay, how can materials connect? Some took it like, how can design elements connect? How
Mm-hmm.
then others are, how do I connect with my alt artwork and make new connections,
Mm,
right?
that's a good one.
A lot of people took it literally more in a personal, emotional part and say, how do I make connections to friends, family, history,
Mm-hmm.
right? Create art with that in mind. So I think making it open but giving a theme, and then having so many different artists that show so many different skill sets and ideas, but also a huge variety on how to think about that theme. That's what makes it for me so invaluable, because it opens it for me again. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm having an idea, of course, why I'm doing this theme every
Mm-hmm.
year, not this theme particularly, but any theme.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of describe what that could mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get the artists to do their own thing. And they come back and I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. Someone thought, how do I make like literal connections between, the materials on the page, or,
Mm-hmm.
how do I make a connection with some piece that I found and found object to something that is dear to my heart, or a person that's dear to my heart. So I love that we're so different, and I think that's where it's personal. I believe in personal art,
Mm-hmm.
so that your artwork has some personal meaning that actually defines your style and that makes the
Yes.
artwork you, right?
Yeah.
And having a variety of people being able to express themselves in the way they want, that's my goal. So the theme is very loose, to give it like a little house,
Yeah.
and then what they do in their own rooms, that's up to them.
Yeah.
But what connects us is the structure of the workshop, in this case the theme.
Yeah, I love the, it's very cool. I love the concept. I love the concept. So, again, if you want to see all that we talked about, I'm going to put in the notes, but it's nataliestudio.com, Natalie with the H. Um, and Natalie, do you have something as we end for the next months ahead that you know it's going to come up, or you're just taking it easy this year?
No, I can't really say anything specific, but I'm working on a new workshop, and I'm also working on a couple new products, stencils, foam stamps,
Oh,
and rubber stamps. So, but it's like too early to actually, like, it's not sent in or anything
mwah, mwah,
yet.
mwah. Not
Hmm?
even the workshop cannot give a hint. No.
It's going to be something in the artful adventure um, range, and it is an artist that's very well known. So let's put it that way.
Oh,
Which is good and bad, because I'm in the research phase first, where I'm like, okay, how can I take this artist's approach and or style, and then apply that to what I do, right, or
yeah.
what I like to explore. So It's an interesting phase, but it's also very boring because you don't have anything to share.
Or you cannot share as well, though people
Yes,
gonna know what it is, right?
right.
But I like this process. You know, I went to see Frida Kahlo exposition here on the local Palm Beach Museum, and boy, it was emotional. And I know from the time you and Julie lived close, you guys would go a lot to the museums. And I'm even thinking to do a membership there because I left the museum with a new appreciation for Frida, but like I wanted to learn more about her and like bought books and bought her diary.
Oh
And
yeah.
I bought everything that I could.
Speaking of a real
Yeah,
art journal, right? Like
yeah.
that
Yeah,
diary.
she has a diary with that she
Yeah.
wrote and they scanned everything and you have that. And I bought two biographies and I bought our official museum print there when I was there. She's in my dining room. Beautiful.
How do you feel that influenced you for your artwork? Like what? Like could you tell that something happened? Like did sometimes
Yeah.
I come from a museum and I can tell that I was highly inspired by
Well,
something.
first, I didn't know that Frida had a lot of sketches. So the first room when you entered the thing was the sketches. And when I started looking at the sketches, they were so provoking because she really criticized, she was very vocal about political things and about the US. And she had one that was the Statue of Liberty, and she had all these things to say about it. And another ones were about, Mexico and what was going on at that time. And others were, her personal struggles. And I thought was like, wow. So you entered the thing already knowing like she like sat down and scribbled these thoughts. And then as you go in the art, and I think people thought I was crazy because I use oils and she used oils, so I would get so close to see like the strokes and like almost like my nose in the camera, and people probably like, what is she doing? Um, but it was just like, to me, it was powerful because she opened herself so much in her art. So it left me with a message that it is okay to tell what you are in your opinions, in your art, right? To be vocal, to be expressive. And I actually want to go back more to do art journals for my blog, and I want to be more of what my mind is thinking, what is going on. And also as a person, I mean, not even close to Frida, but as a person that has mental health issues, is to see her pain and to see they had her medical things there, the things that she used on her chest, and they also had pictures of how her bathroom was, and the difficulties, and they have to have things in the bathroom. And they had a picture there that was they had the painting, and then they have a picture on the side that she painted that in bed, right? And sometimes I stopped so much in front of that, and I actually bought the print. It was Diego in my mind. She has herself in this, robe, and then she has Diego over here in her forehead. And for people it can seem weird, but I got it. I got it, what she was trying to say there. But when I saw that, I thought, wow, despite her pain, despite her disability, she was there painting. And I bet that she was painting in bed because it made her forget her disability and her pain. Right? So it proves that when I left that, it made me so happy inside because it was like, I am doing something good. I am doing something that helps my mind and my particular problem, but that art really helps you to be mindful in that time, in that minute that she was there. I believe so hard that she forgot everything. and she just wanted to create, right? And
Yeah.
her love and her sayings about Diego and their struggles, which you can read more in her books, but it is I mean, if you just see her art, you don't realize. If you I know this exhibition is going around, so if you have a chance, go see it.
Hmm.
And go on the internet. There's the Frida Kahlo Foundation, and you know, go read her story. It's just so powerful. A life of struggles and pain.
Yeah, I
And
think this is my favorite part. I mean, and of course, that's part of what I feel is art about is when you have an artwork that you can connect so dear, like so strong that it
mm-hmm,
provokes feelings. And they can
mm-hmm,
be good feelings or bad feelings, right?
mm-hmm,
It can be also you hate that artwork, and
mm-hmm.
that's actually also something
Yeah.
that it shows you.
Mm-hmm.
And I always, I mean, I don't know if that is true for my artwork, but that's what gets me most and inspires me most.
I was
If I
going to
will.
say this. I think it is, and because every art has, I believe it brings emotion, right? Every art.
Mm,
And you may think, well, is architecture my work? But I have to say, your print that I have here, every time I look at it, I pass by sometimes and I look, I remember New Jersey. And I
really.
remember the good times I had there.
Yeah,
It makes me feel warm. So whatever connection, because again, we don't know the connection that people are gonna have with our art.
exactly. Yeah,
You
yeah.
were not thinking about that when you created that, right? But everybody connects in a way. Even if it's just, I believe I try to do colorful work, and I always say in all my things, I want to bring you happiness.
Hmm.
And whatever else, if you don't have stories or if you don't are deep like that, you just like it because it's pretty, that's fine. Because I believe that sentiment that you like in the colors or whatever will bring you happiness every time you look. Because I feel that every
Hmm.
time I look at the pieces I have here.
Hmm.
I I feel the connection every time I look at Frida at my house, right? It's just amazing. I think whatever art we do, we're gonna the art is gonna find itself to the people that connect with it, and the people that connect gonna have whatever story it is.
Yeah, I think, and it's also important to see that sometimes it's a cultural thing too. When you look at art, because you asked before how my culture or my background is, represented in my work, and I think for me that's also something that's very important. I may look at some artwork in a different way than another person, right? So, for example, yeah, Julie and I used to go to the museum very often, and
You probably have
one time.
different views, right, of the same
Right.
art.
So when I see a German artist like Sigmar Polke, I know instinctively, like, oh, this is a painting that deals with the, like, divide between East and West Germany or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. While maybe Julie in that moment would stay there and say, wow, this is really cool with the material, which is, that's
For the
another
design,
matter,
yeah.
right? So that's very interesting, and we had it in a different way too when I looked at paintings by Lawrence, and I didn't really know him, and there he was painting about the Great Migration, and she asked me what I see in those paintings, and I didn't have that cultural, growing up in America, so it didn't dawn on me yet before I knew more about the time when he was painting it and what the topic was about. So that's also very interesting that, depending on where you come from, you or your personal story, you see art so differently, and that's what's so
Mm-hmm.
amazing about it. And that's why we have to go out and even look at artwork that we might
Yeah.
think that it's not really interesting
It's
to
totally
us, right?
different than we do, right? Because Frida,
Right,
she didn't, I mean, she painted herself.
right, yeah,
So it's, you may think, oh, what it has to do with what I create. You can always connect
yeah,
with something. You can
yeah,
always. So if you have an opportunity, go to your local museum because you're gonna, and I left there and there were so many other expositions that I didn't see that day, but I'm seriously gonna do I want to do Sundays to take to myself and just go there
Hmm.
and see that they have a nice garden, and you just go around and take my notebook and write what I thought about things. It's
Hmm.
just in my plan. But Natalie, again, thank you so much. You were so, so kind to do that again. I
No worries.
appreciate, and it was great that this time we could show your art and talk about deeply about it and showing your courses and everything. I so appreciate. So I'll let people know that I think a better way to know what your things are happening with you is to maybe check your Instagram, right? And
Yeah, or sign up for my newsletter.
yes, yes.
Don't worry about me that I'm a little bit more quiet on Instagram. That only means that I'm doing stuff in the
Other
background.
things in the works. Yes, so I'll put all the links, but please, if you have a chance listening to this later and were not able to watch the video, um, check her Instagram. You're gonna be highly inspired by her work there. There's a lot of beautiful buildings to see there. I don't know, maybe a Princeton future building there. I don't know. Um, Princeton architecture is amazing. I don't know. Have you been there?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
nice.
just
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. So anyway, Natalie, thank you so much.
Thank you
I
so much for having
appreciate
me
it.
again. I loved chatting with you again.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.